James F. Hansley, Managing Director, Private Equity of the Investment Funds Department of the Overseas Private Investment Corporation. Mr. Hansley joined the Overseas Private Investment Corporation, OPIC, as it's called, a U.S. government agency in May of 1999, and serves as Managing Director of Private Equity. In that capacity, he serves on boards of advisors and has responsibility for overseeing a portfolio of private equity funds covering a number of emerging market countries. And a total portfolio of more than 30 private equity funds, representing in excess of $4 billion in total capital. He performs a critical function in overseeing the daily activities of the funds and performing due diligence in the vetting and selection of global, regional, and country professional fund managers. Prior to OPIC, Mr. Hansley was engaged as Senior Venture Capital Advisor at the U.S. Agency for International Development, also known as USAID. He also was engaged as a venture capital consultant at the African Bureau of the USAID. In 1969, Mr. Hansley founded and served for 14 years as President and Chief Executive Officer of Vanguard Investment Company, a private equity fund licensed by the U.S. Small Business Administration. He is the founder and past president of the National Association of Investment Companies. He's a former governor of the National Association of Small Business Investment Companies. Mr. Hansley is a graduate of Temple University and has completed an executive business program at Harvard Graduate School of Business, the internationalization of private equity. Please help me welcome Mr. James F. Hansley.
Privilege for me to be here. I am really inspired by the things I've seen and heard over the last 2 days. It's not often that I see this kind of assemblage of principally people of color managing serious money in this country. Congratulate the organizers of this event. This is really, really inspiring for me and inspiring for young people. That's one of the things that I do in my work, is to find ways to get our young people involved in this very important activity, managing money and recognizing the influence that that has over everything, including politics. So I'd just like to take a few moments of your time to share with you what the Overseas Private Investment Corporation does. We are the economic development arm of the U.S. government. And by the way, my presentation might sound a little bit choppy because I had some slides that I was hoping to be talking from as we listen here, so just bear with me, please. We have a total of about $14.5 billion in assets outstanding at OPIC. We work in 150 emerging market countries around the world. We are split up into 3 sections. There is the political risk insurance section of OPIC, which manages about $3 billion worth of assets. And then there's the loan portfolio of OPIC, which manages about $9 billion of assets. And these are small business loans and also project financings, which go up to $250 million per project. And lastly is the investment funds portfolio, which currently represents about 32 funds and OPIC of about $3 billion. This last category is the asset base that I want to ask you to focus on, because I would like for you to consider becoming partners with OPIC in the future in sponsoring private equity funds in emerging markets around the world. One of the reasons that I think it's so important is that recently Goldman Sachs did a study, and it concluded that into the year 2020, the developed markets will have a growth rate of about 2% per year. It also concluded that in emerging markets, including the BRICS, that's Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, their growth rate will equate to about 7% per year. That's a big difference, and it tells, it says to fund managers who are really alert that where they want to be focusing their attention in the future is not so much on developed markets like the U.S. And other developed economies, but in the emerging markets, which are having a very significant growth rate. I'd also like to add that aside from South Africa, we see other African countries which are turning in a positive direction and showing very significant rates of growth. And even though some parts of the world are slow to recognize that, China is not. They are all over the place. There's a serious land grab going on right now in Africa by China and other countries who are looking for resources and minerals and ores and so forth and so on. And too many of us are not aware of that, and we need to be, because that's so important to our future. I talked about the three distinct products, and I was depending on my slides here to help me. But just bear with me a moment. Now, let me talk a bit about how we organize ourselves as funds. We are prohibited by law from putting pure equity capital into funds. So the product that we use is a debt product that is tied to U.S. Treasury strips. And those of you who follow capital markets know that treasuries are now bringing very low yields. In fact, we put out some money last week at a little more than 1%. And it is that type of capital that we are providing to our fund managers who are required to raise $2 of LP capital, limited partner capital, for every dollar that we put up. And they take those $3 then and they make pure equity investments in small business countries in emerging markets again. The reason that's so important to you here, I think, is that you are looking for ways to boost your returns for your retirees and people who will be retiring in the future. And I would like to sincerely make a pitch to you to think very carefully about finding a way to connect with OPIC through REBA and other people who are involved with the U.S. government. We post everything we do on our website in a very transparent way, so that when we make an investment in a fund, those of you who consult our website can go to our website, find out who they are, just what the contact points are, and also make a pitch to become a part of that fund. And that's something that I would encourage you to do more in the future. But in fact, I was just talking to Reba just a little bit ago that in February of next year, we're planning a conference, well, perhaps not a conference, but a workshop where we plan to bring LPs and institutional investors from all over the U.S. to OPIC, or rather to Washington, because this will be an interagency initiative to apprise you and them of what we do as an agency, how important we think it is for us and also for you, and this is something that we will be talking more about as we go along, and you will see some publications not too long from now about that. We do all of our funds through an asset allocation plan, which is done for us by Cambridge Associates, a very prestigious Boston firm. And the other way that we decide on which funds that we involve ourselves in is we take direction from the administration, from the State Department, from the National Security Council, of areas that they think are critical for the U.S. And those are the two ways that we decide just what we're going to do and how we're going to do it. We have an open and transparent process for selecting all of our fund managers. We do what we call a call for proposals, which goes up on our website, and it goes all over the world, and people respond to that call. And just recently we had what we call a global engagement call, and that's a call that was intended to help us to balance our portfolio so that we're not too heavy in one region as over against another, or in one sector as over against another. We made contact with 225 fund managers. We received 158 proposals. We shortlisted as finalists 16 of those firms. And I forgot to mention that this call closed in January of 2012. We took to our board 5 of those fund managers in June of 2012 to give you an idea of how quickly we process. The thing that really gets me sometimes is I hear people who talk disparagingly of people who work for the government. They say we don't do very much work. That's not true of OPIC, that's not true of the State Department and other people I know in this room who are working for the U.S. government. We are not sitting on our hands. We're doing some serious work, and I just want you to know that. Of those 5 firms that we took to our board in June, they represented about $400 million of U.S. investment, or OPIC investment. Of the firms that were left, we expect another 8 to 10 funds to be taken to our board within the next 6 to 8 months. Some of those funds were not quite ready. They had not raised enough capital. They may have not completed their team formations and so forth and so on. But they represent a very important source of investment opportunities for people in this room. And those firms, by the way, those those 5 firms that were selected by our board are up on our website. If you're interested in contacting them, you have that information on the website. We have a board that's comprised of about 15 people. Half of them come from the private sector, and half of them are senior government officials and so forth and so on. Let's see. Oh yeah, I want to point out that we use a private equity advisor in all of our fund manager selections so that we are not too heavy from a government standpoint in deciding who gets selected. We want to make sure that our program passes muster in the private markets. We listen very carefully to our private advisors, and they give us their very best advice, and our due diligence process is considered by the private equity industry to be one of the best. And so when a firm gets through our process, you can feel fairly comfortable that they have been scrubbed very hard. I would, let's see, I would just like to point out that we are rather disappointed that we are not seeing more funds in the Caribbean. We have supported the private, or rather the Portland Private Equity Fund, that's the sponsor of is Michael Lee Chin from Jamaica. We have committed $68 million to that fund. They have been operating now for 5 years. It's a 10-year fund. They have a very substantial, large investment, which is an undersea cable operation called Columbus International, which is going to be a very profitable investment for them and for us, and also for the Caribbean. We don't know what the impediments are that are keeping the Caribbean from participating more fully in the private equity space, but that's something that is of very great concern to us. And if any of you have any ideas that you'd like to share with me, I will certainly take that back to Washington and see if we can act on it. Sure. Okay. Those are my basic comments, and I'd be glad to entertain any questions from the floor that you might have, if that's appropriate. All right. Well, thank you very much.